CARDARINE, the endurance booster and fat burner. I'm Dr. Tony Huge, and I'm going to tell you a disclaimer, then give my experience with CARDARINE. I'm going to talk about its use for men or women and for what ages, its dosage, benefits, side effects, what not to stack it with, what to stack it with, and using CARDARINE for the keto diet and CARDARINE for fasting. So first, my disclaimer. This is not medical, legal, or any other type of advice. This is educational entertainment purposes only. My experience with CARDARINE has been using it for more than 15 years. I have to do the calculation. Maybe I started using it when I was in my early 20s. I'm 39 years old right now. And I used it initially for just endurance benefits, not for the fat burning benefits. I first used it to see how many calories per hour I could burn if I increased my endurance, and I was able to bring my hourly caloric burn from 700 calories per hour to 1,000 calories per hour, which is a 30% increase in basically endurance and caloric burn. So really a miracle compound. I never had any side effects from it from my more than 15 years of usage, only benefits. It truly was a miracle for me. All right, CARDARINE versus Clen. Clenbuterol and other fat burners are stimulant-based, and they have a lot more side effects than people talk about or reveal. So people use things like caffeine for fat burning, which does work, but maybe it only increases fat burning by 5%, but it also comes with a whole list of side effects. So something like CARDARINE burns more fat, but with a lot less side effects because we're not working on the stimulant pathway. All the stimulants rev up your heart rate and overstimulate your adrenaline system, and make you shaky and energetic, and you have this crash and you have addiction problems. None of that exists with CARDARINE. CARDARINE simply makes the body more efficient at burning fat for fuel, meaning that we're burning more fat instead of burning carbohydrates. So we preserve muscle, we preserve glycogen stores, and instead we start switching over to fat as a fuel source when we're using CARDARINE. So we burn more fat and we have more endurance. CARDARINE for men or women, both equally well. There's not any major differences. It works perfectly well for men, works perfectly well for women. There's no difference in the side effects for men or women, which is that I found no side effects, or if there is a side effect like the risk of cancer we'll get into later, the side effect for men and women would be fairly equal. For what ages, I am not recommending the youth use this, but I know that in sports, young children do use this for a massive increase in performance benefits, and I know specifically that a lot of the athletes that are youthful athletes that are winning a lot of competitions are using CARDARINE because they don't drug test, and it is extremely effective. And to this date, we still have never seen a side effect in children or adults. Again, not promoting the use of this for children. I'm just saying we've never seen any side effects. We've only seen benefits in anecdotal reports so far. Dosage. I use 20 milligrams. The dosage is between 10 to 50 milligrams normally. I don't notice much more benefit when I go over 20 milligrams. I do notice the difference between 10 and 20 milligrams. I think about half the people I know using it right now are using 10 milligrams, and half the people I know that are using it are using 20 or 30 milligrams. Maybe the majority of the people I know are actually using around 20 milligrams. The benefits are fat burning. It does help burn more fat, but I find that less significant than the endurance boosting benefits. So the way I see a tremendous amount of fat burning happening on it is because it increases people's capacity to exercise more, and it gives them more energy. So when someone is dieting, and usually they'd have low energy and their metabolism slows down, then they take CARDARINE, then they get a lot of energy and they start being more physically active, and they start being able to work out harder, and they start wanting to do cardio because cardio becomes easy on CARDARINE. And so CARDARINE ends up burning a lot of fat, not directly as if someone's just sitting on their butt, although it does that too, but because of the increased physical activity level, because of the increase in energy. Benefits also switching the body over to fat burning instead of being dependent on glycogen. So a lot of people in Western culture are addicted to carbohydrates, and they have these energy fluctuations, and they're burning their muscle glycogen storage when they could be burning fat because their body is not fat adapted. CARDARINE helps people become fat adapted, and it trains the body to be able to use fat as a primary fuel source, which has tremendous long-term benefits, not just short-term benefits. That's why it was initially researched and developed to be exercise in a bottle. So for overweight Westerners who don't exercise and who are completely dependent on glycogen, and their body are incapable of burning fat for fuel, it helps their body become more of a natural, healthier state of being able to burn fat for fuel and getting off the glycogen addiction. The benefits I'm talking about are not the normal benefits most people talk about. Most people just say it burns fat, it builds endurance. But I'm telling you why, because in a minute I'm going to explain how I work it into some of our extreme fat loss protocols. What are the side effects? I have never seen any side effects of it personally, but there are medical studies in which they gave rats megadoses for the rat's entire life, and at the end of the rat's life, they developed cancer tumors. So in humans, we were always afraid, oh my gosh, this thing's going to cause cancer. And it could in megadoses, dosage that are just so high it's not even financially feasible to take for periods of time that just don't make any sense. So like that's why we've never seen a human case study that I know of ever seeing cancer, despite people having used this for almost 2 decades now. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't develop cancer later. I mean, we've got lots of people using this for 20 years with no side effects, but maybe 40 years from now they develop cancer, right? So we don't know. It is a risk. Personally, I feel fine with that risk because there are also are studies showing that cycling this will actually help prevent some major chronic diseases. So like I see studies that show it may help. I see studies that show it may harm. I've never seen an actual real life situation in someone having a side effect. So I feel really safe with it. What not to stack it with. This is an interesting compound because this is one of the few things that could be stacked with anything. There really aren't a lot of other drugs or supplements that work on this pathway. And this pathway isn't contradicted with any other pathway that I know of. So it stacks really well with everything, and there's nothing I can think of that I wouldn't stack it with that would be something that someone would try to stack it with. So what to stack it with? Well, it stacks well with stimulants. So when someone says, should I take a stimulant or should I take Cardarine? It's like both because they stack really well together. The stimulant will also give more energy and will release fat to be burned. The Cardarine doesn't necessarily release as much fat, but it increases the body's ability to use fat for fuel. So as you can see, stacking Cardarine with anything that releases fat from the fat cells would be synergistic. And a lot of other fat burners or growth hormone, clenbuterol, synephrine, yohimbine, caffeine, higenamine, all these different fat burners and stimulants stack really well with yohimbine, yohimbine, clenbuterol, Cardarine. All right, Cardarine for keto. So now we're getting into how I use it in actual protocols where I transform people's body faster than mainstream could ever imagine. One of the diets that we use for this is the ketogenic diet where we don't eat any carbohydrates. When you eat carbohydrates, for day in and day out for many, many years, your body, like most people do in Western society or in the world in general, they become dependent and addicted on carbohydrates and their body sort of loses the ability to access and burn fuel efficiently. By going to the ketogenic diet, we can still eat. We don't have to fast. We don't have to starve ourselves. We can still eat. We just cut out the carbohydrates. And then the body will naturally, on its own, without supplements, be able to transition to be more of a fat-burning body, which is good. We want that. More fat-burning body means easier to burn body fat and much better energy levels and mental clarity. So I feel like everybody should do the ketogenic diet. Not necessarily all the time, but at least for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month per year, per every few months to get the body fat adapted again. Well, that process can be hard for some people because when they're transitioning to becoming fat adapted, their energy level drops. And they feel tired and their body's struggling to switch over to fat burning mode. Well, Cardarine helps the body switch over to fat burning mode really easily. So if we combine the ketogenic diet with Cardarine, then we get all the benefits of the ketogenic diet, which is transitioning the body on many different levels to being fat adapted. And then we get the benefit, it's a short-term benefit at first, where the Cardarine sort of gives us that, where we want to be with keto is where Cardarine puts us immediately. So we use the Cardarine as a short term so that we bridge the gap between being carb adapted and fat adapted. So in the meantime, we're not suffering. So when we go into the ketogenic diet, instead of having maybe a 1 week or 2 week transition period of suffering, we take the Cardarine and we don't suffer. We don't even notice that we dropped out the carbohydrates because our energy level and our stamina maintains or actually even increases despite cutting carbohydrates out of our diet. So I think most professionals and dietitians and coaches would agree that compliance is one of the most important variables in someone's success in doing a transformation. Well, it's a lot easier to comply if I put someone on a ketogenic diet and then I give them Cardarine and they have plenty of energy and they feel great, versus when I put them on a ketogenic diet and they feel like crap and they have low energy and it takes their body time to transition. And then I think it's really healthy to do the ketogenic diet more frequently. So if it's so easy to transition and do the ketogenic diet because we have Cardarine, then it's like, hey, why not do 1 week of keto every month and use Cardarine during that week? right? Then there's no drawback to it. Like your energy level increases and health massively increases. Another main point about Cardarine is it's not just for performance enhancing and it's not just for fat loss, it's for health. I mean, it simulates the effect of doing a couple hours of cardio per day by just taking a pill. Like a lot of the benefits that we get from cardio, like the reason we would do cardio, well, Cardarine does that by just taking a pill. Now, of course, combine cardio with Cardarine, and it's even better. By the way, I should have mentioned in the beginning, by Cardarine, I mean GW501516. This is the chemical name for it, but I've been referring to it as Cardarine. And then Cardarine for fasting. So now this is another extreme protocol that we'll use for transformations, in which we can lose something like 20 pounds of fat in 30 days easily by doing fasting, not for 30 days, but we do like fasting for a short period and then we eat again, and then fasting and then we eat again. But during these periods of fasting, it can be really hard for people because their energy level drops, they're hungry, they don't have stamina. But when they use Cardarine while they're fasting, it helps transition again the body very quickly to be able to use fat for fuel. And your body is carrying plenty of fat to use for fuel. Like think about this. If you don't eat for a period of time, you feel tired, but why do you feel tired? You shouldn't feel tired. Naturally, if it wasn't in the modern age where food was so convenient, you wouldn't feel tired when you were fasting. You'd feel more energy because your body switches over to fat burning mode and your body says, okay, now we need to have plenty of energy and plenty of focus to be able to go pursue and get food. So your energy level actually should go up. But instead, it's the other way around. People fast, and because they're addicted to carbohydrates, their energy level plummets. So to be able to fast and still maintain energy level and still feel great while fasting, Cardarine's a miracle for this. Like it's an absolute game changer. I will add just that, for fasting, I wouldn't just take Cardarine. I'd also take a lot of minerals, especially sodium. I find that if you take sodium, you feel so much better. It's almost like when you're eating food, you think you're needing the calories from the food, but it's not really the calories, it's the micronutrients you need from the food. You have plenty of calories on your body. The body stores plenty of fat, and there's so much fat used for fuel, you could go months without eating and still have enough body fat to use for fuel. So it's not the reason why our energy level is low or why we feel like we're suffering through fasting or the ketogenic diet is not because we don't have enough calories. If anything, it's because of just the fact that our body's not adapted because it's gotten weak, just like a muscle that's not been exercised because of modern food and convenience, and also lack of micronutrients. Be swell and swole, friends, freedom, pioneers of human evolution.